Hey everybody, how are you? It's so nice to see you and meet you in person or via camera. I'm Gina, and so I thought that maybe doing the FBA and BIP like this would be helpful. Word has it that you guys don't take behavior management classes in your program. If you do, rah rah, that's awesome. But I heard that you might have not, so I wanted to do a FBA BIP primer for you just in case you do use these documents within your work in schools. Now note that most schools in New York City will use an FBA or BIP when there is an issue with a serious behavior that affects either the health or safety or learning of the child or the health, safety, or learning of the students in the class. I really like FBAs and BIPs because they're very paper-based. They're very like microscopic. They take a microscopic look at behavior, a scientific view of behavior, so that you can really see what's going on as well as how to help the child that's in need of help in terms of behavior. So the best way to do this would be to download the FBA and BIP documents that I left on Blackboard. And I'll be using them and I'll be going through each part of the FBA and the BIP. So in case you ever have to use these, you will know what to do. So in terms of the first page of the FBA, it asks for reasons for the behavior, reasons for the FBA. And so here you're going to really clearly identify the problem behavior. This shouldn't be a litany of complaints. It shouldn't be like, this is what's wrong and this is what's wrong and this is what's wrong. You should have like one problem behavior and focus on that one problem behavior. And so you definitely want to define that in clear terms. You want to define when, where, how it happens. And you also want to formulate a hypothesis, like here's the behavior and this is why I think it's happening. That hypothesis is really important. Again, with all these documents, you want to be clean, clear, really crisp in your descriptions, because that's how you best help. If you best sort of know what's going on, know the issue, then you best help. Second page of the FBA asks for informant data and a review of student records. You can say something like, ABC chart and anecdotals are attached to this FBA, but you also have to say, what you've gotten from talking to the student, what you've gotten for talking to his or her parents or guardian, and you also want to put what the student is really good at because it's important. Sometimes these FBAs and BIPs and sometimes IEPs end up being like this, sort of like, okay, this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong. And you really do want to focus on, hey, this is what's right too. So this is what's going really well, but here's the issue. So you want to, in clear terms, summarize what you know from the student, from their parents or guardian, from other teachers, from administrators, from the psychologist, as well as, summarize data from the ABC chart. So for example, like when does this behavior most take place? What are the setting events for this behavior, et cetera, et cetera. The third page, the first box on the third page of the FBA asks for information regarding frequency, latency, and duration. Your frequency is how often behavior occurs. Your duration is how long the behavior occurs. And then the intensity is, of course, how intense the behavior is. Or like, when it occurs across setting, across day. You know, I wouldn't do an FBA on a kid who's sort of like acts up sometimes. I would do an FBA on a kid who's consistently acting up and that needs sort of a microscope on his or her behavior. The next section of the FBA asks for student preferences for reinforcement. And for this particular part, you want to ask the student, hey, I want you to be happy here and I want you to be well behaved here. So what's that going to take? Sometimes we're so into like giving stickers and stars and whatever we usually use, but sometimes that's not reinforcing to the student. And so it's really important to put a spotlight on to focus on student preferences for reinforcement, and the way you do that is you ask them. In terms of aversion, sometimes aversions can be triggers, and so you have to be careful with them. And so you do want to ask, or note if this is what's aversive to the student. This is what he or she doesn't like. So obviously, don't give that or don't do that. In terms of the fourth page just asks for a summary. That summary is in preparation for the behavior management plan. In behavior management, usually extinction does not happen easily. And so although we think the goal of behavior management is to um, have the behavior go away, sometimes that doesn't happen. And so it's important to think about replacement skills and behaviors that can replace the behavior. So for example, I'll give you an example of a replacement skill. So if you have a student whose function of behavior is to escape a void, okay? So say you have a student, his name is Michael, and during class he really likes to just leave and take a walk. Obviously the tendency is to say, okay, how do we stop him from doing that? But the truth is, it's really hard to stop an existing behavior without working on it in steps. So a replacement behavior for a kid who just walks out would be to give Michael or have Michael learn a signal or sign to ask for a break instead, or to have him actually just ask for a break and then you allow him a break instead of him just running out of the classroom, which does happen. So here you're looking at replacement behaviors. Replacement behaviors are really important to behavior management. Again, you're not looking for it to be extinct, you're looking for it to be replaced. So that's really important. It's all about teaching alternative skills, teaching replacement behaviors, because extinction may happen, but it's so hard for to immediately or within weeks have a behavior to become extinct. So that's really important. Okay, so we go to the BIP now. The FBA does set the stage for the BIP, and the BIP is your behavior management plan. This whole FBA BIP process should be collaborative. It should involve multiple people, including administrator, school psychologist, students, parents, or guardian, gen ed teacher, special ed teacher, etc., etc. So it is a collaborative process, just like an IEP would be, or just like any other meeting would be. And so you'll see on the BIP that, it's important, really, really, really important to collaborate on this. So, first page of the BIP just asks for a summary of the FBA. So what's the problem behavior, what's frequency, latency, duration, does it happen during all activities, does it happen during some activities? In one paragraph, you're just going to summarize, hey, this is what the function of the behavior is, here's what the FBA states. Then you go to prevention. How do we prevent this behavior from happening? Sometimes you can look at a student's ABC charts, and sometimes those ABC charts will give you really, really good sort of clues as to what the prevention strategy could be. So the first part of page 2 is asking for prevention. Okay. The second part of page 2 is really important. Again, it's asking for adaptive instruction. So what you're doing again is you are trying to teach functionally equivalent skills, trying to teach skills that may help this individual to replace their behavior. So again, instead of leaving class, being able to ask for a break. I have kids that instead of waiting for the teacher to give them positive reinforcement, will give themselves positive reinforcement. So they're in charge of their own stickers or stars or whatever. And so it's whatever works for the student. It's whatever is really, it just works for the whole student. I think that's really important. FBAs and BIPs are very personalized. You don't have we'll do this for this behavior issue, we'll do that for that behavior issue. It just really puts a microscope on the student, puts a microscope on the behavior, and says, hey, what can we do personally to help this student? So again, second part is adaptive skill instruction. Third part is intervention strategies, and the first part asks you, you know, what exactly is something that can be used to strengthen appropriate behavior? Um, is that positive specific praise? Is that a tangible reinforcement? How do you say good job? I'm a big fan of not just saying good job. I'm a big fan of really using positive specific praise. So instead of, hey, Michael, you did a great job on that. Hey, Michael, I love how you asked for a break, or I love how you waited until everything was passed out and everyone else to start for you to start. Or hey, I really appreciate how you helping me in class, or I love how you wrote this. It's really beautiful. Positive specific praise is so much better than just sort of, you know, the great job, good job, super, the things we all do as teachers. So you're going to talk in this section of the BIP about how to strengthen appropriate behavior. And then you're going to talk about how to respond to occurrences of unwanted behavior. Because no matter what, I mean, students are not perfect, we're not perfect. And so probably even if you do this FBA and you do the BIP and you do it well, sometimes the student's not going to be good all the time. So how do you change your consequence maybe? How do you work with this student when they are exhibiting poor behavior? And it's important to think about. You know, you don't always want to do the same thing because what you've been doing obviously hasn't been working if you're doing an FBA or BIP. So you want to do something different. You want the consequence to be something different. And that's really important to note. On the fourth page of a BIP, it asks for a crisis plan. Usually you don't need a crisis plan, but it is important for you to know um, how to respond when emergencies happen in your classroom, or how to respond when a student does have a crisis situation. Some schools have a set crisis plan. There's a phone in the room. You call this person, you call that person, this person comes, that person leaves, whatever. When you're hired at a school, if you're not teaching, you do want to ask about the crisis plan. If you are teaching, it's important that you know the crisis plan for your school. So again, most schools have a set crisis plan. Other times it's just sort of like how we're going to react if this kid like tantrums, or how are we going to react if something happens in the classroom. So it's good to know a crisis plan, or just good to have a crisis plan just in case. You probably will never need it. And then you have the BIP monitoring schedule as the last part of the BIP, and I think this is so important. The BIP needs to be a working document. And so at this first FBA BIP meeting, when I'm working with teachers and I'm working with students and I'm working with parents, what I want to do is I want to set a BIP monitoring schedule. And so I really want to say, okay, so we'll look at this again in 2 weeks, and then we'll look at this again another 2 weeks. I like to schedule 3 meetings in 2-week increments, because that really, again, shows us that we're actively working on the behavior, we're not ignoring anything, and that we're using this document we worked so hard on, and that the student is responding, because if the student's not responding, then the BIP document has to be done over and changed. And that's fine. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes we think of things and they don't work, so you have to think of other things. Um, so yeah, those documents are really, really important if your school does PBIS. You definitely will be using an FBA or BIP. And I think that even if your school doesn't use PBIS or FBAs or BIP plans, when you're faced with a problem behavior that has a long duration and is serious, it's good to even like write one yourself, just so you can put a microscope on behavior. Again, the secret to behavior management truly is consistency. With whatever you do, you want to be consistent. You also, of course, want to be kind and patient with kids, and reward them when they're doing stuff right, either by praise or either by a tangible reward, or even just having them know that you appreciate their good work. So I think that's really important. All right, you guys, so good to talk to you. Any questions, ask me on the discussion board, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.